The desert moon of Vexor 9 was silent, except for the wind. Captain Raiden walked through the wreckage of an alien escape pod, his boots crunching against broken glass and twisted metal. He raised his blaster, eyes sharp, searching for survivors or enemies. Then he saw her, curled beside the wreckage, her skin pale with silver patterns glowing faintly. Her long white hair was tangled, her armored suit torn. She was bleeding, but alive. Raiden didn't lower his weapon. "Don't move," he said firmly. The alien girl lifted her head slowly, her golden eyes full of fire. She tried to stand, but her leg gave out still. She reached for a small blade strapped to her side. "Don't," Raiden warned, aiming directly at her. He was ready to fire, but then something strange happened. She let the blade fall. She fell to her knees, breathing heavily. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "Don't kill me, human. I'll warm your bed." Raiden blinked. Did he hear her right? His team arrived behind him, weapons drawn, but they all hesitated when they saw her kneeling like that. No alien warrior had ever surrendered like this, especially not the proud Dravari. They were known for fighting to the death, not begging. She looked up again, her voice soft but steady. "Kill me if you want, but if I die here, you die too." "What does that mean?" Raiden asked, stepping closer but still cautious. The girl's hand touched her chest right over her heart. "There is something in me, something your people do not understand." Raiden signaled for the medic to check her. He watched her carefully. She didn't fight as they injected a sedative into her neck. She just stared at him with eyes that looked ancient and afraid. As she passed out, she whispered again, "Don't trust them. My people. They left me to die." Back on the human ship Helios, Raiden sat in the command room reviewing the footage. The alien girl, now identified as a high-ranking Dravari warrior named Lyra, was locked in the brig. But what haunted Raiden was not the fight, it was her words. "Don't kill me, I'll warm your bed." Was she trying to seduce him, trick him? Or was there another meaning? The ship's doctor entered the room, holding a tablet. "Captain, you need to see this." Raiden looked at the screen. Lyra's scans were unusual, very unusual. "What am I looking at?" he asked. The doctor looked nervous. "She's not fully Dravari," he said. "There's something else in her DNA, something ancient." "Ancient how?" Raiden pressed. "Human," the doctor said quietly. "Or at least, very close." Raiden stood up, shocked. That's impossible, but it wasn't. Because now he remembered something, an old myth told in secret by some space miners, a story about a time when humans and Dravari were not enemies, but allies, even lovers. He had always laughed at that story, but now Lyra was awake again, sitting silently in her cold cell. She didn't cry, didn't speak. She just stared at the wall, her fingers moving as if drawing invisible symbols. Raiden entered the cell with 2 guards behind him. She didn't look up. "You said your people left you to die," he said calmly. "Why?" She slowly turned her head, her eyes dull now. "Because I carry something they fear," she said. "Something I didn't ask for." Raiden crossed his arms. "Then why beg for your life?" Lyra smiled bitterly. "That wasn't begging," she said. "That was warning you. Your bed will burn if you let me die." Raiden stared at her, confused. But he knew one thing for sure. This was no ordinary alien. She had secrets buried deep, and somehow they were connected to Earth. And war was coming. Outside the window, the stars blinked in silence. But Raiden felt it. Something had changed the moment he found her, and now the galaxy would never be the same. Lyra sat alone in the cell, her arms folded, her head low. The cold metal floor didn't bother her. She had trained on death worlds. This was nothing but the silence. The silence cut deeper than any blade. Outside the glass, 2 guards stood silently. Captain Raiden watched from the shadows. She hadn't eaten, hadn't spoken again, not since the words that shook the room. "Don't kill me, human. I'll warm your bed." Raiden couldn't stop thinking about them. Were they a trick? A code? or something else? He tapped on the control panel, and the glass door slid open. Lyra didn't move. "Why did you say that?" he asked, stepping closer. "I don't believe it was fear." Still no answer. He sat across from her, placing a small food pack between them. "Talk," he said, "or command will order your execution in 48 hours. She finally looked up, her golden eyes meeting his. "You think I care?" she said softly. "I died the moment my own ship left me behind." Raiden narrowed his eyes. "You were a commander, weren't you?" She didn't answer. Instead, she asked a question of her own. "Have you ever been betrayed by your own blood?" Raiden didn't speak, but she could see the flicker in his eyes. She nodded slowly. "Then you understand," she whispered. "I was loyal, strong, chosen to lead. Until they found out what was in me." Raiden leaned forward, curious. "What was in you?" Lyra hesitated, then pulled back the sleeve of her arm. A glowing mark pulsed softly beneath her skin, almost like a circuit, almost like writing. "This," she said, "is not Dravari. It's older. It only appears when I'm close to humans." Raiden frowned. "How?" "My mother was pure Dravari. My father—" "I don't know," she said. "They erased his name, his face, even his blood from our records. But something remains in me." She looked at Raiden seriously. "They told me it was a curse. But I think it's a connection." Raiden stood, silent, thinking. A warrior, with possible human ancestry? That could explain the DNA scans, but it didn't explain why she dropped her weapon and spoke those words. "Where did you learn that phrase?" he asked. "I'll warm your bed. That's not something Dravari say." Lyra's cheeks flushed slightly, barely noticeable under her pale skin. I heard it once. From a human transmission." She looked away, ashamed. "I didn't know what else to say. I knew you wouldn't kill someone offering comfort." Raiden's eyes narrowed. "You think I'd spare you because of that?" "No," she said quickly. "I hoped you'd pause long enough to see I wasn't your enemy." He studied her. There was shame in her voice, but also pain and something else. "Loneliness. You could have fought to the end," Raiden said. "Why surrender?" Lyra sighed. "Because I'm tired of fighting for people who'd rather see me dead than understand me." Raiden walked to the door, pausing before stepping out. "If you want to live, you'll tell me everything." "I already did," she whispered. "But you're not ready to believe me." The door hissed shut behind him. Later that night, Raiden couldn't sleep. He stared out into space, the stars blinking like tiny secrets. He remembered the war reports. The Dravari always attacked in numbers, always followed orders, but Lyra had crashed alone. No rescue signal, no reinforcements, abandoned, forgotten, silenced, and that mark on her arm. It felt familiar. He pulled up old Earth myth file stories of early spacefarers meeting alien tribes. One image stopped him cold. A woman from legend, marked with glowing symbols on her skin. She had golden eyes, just like Lyra. Back in the cell, Lyra stared at the ceiling. She wasn't afraid to die, but part of her, just a small part, hoped the human captain would see past her armor, past her blood. Maybe then she wouldn't have to die alone. The medbay was quiet, except for the soft hum of machines. Captain Raiden stood beside the medical scanner, arms folded, eyes focused. Dr. Ilian adjusted the display and took a step back, visibly shaken. "This shouldn't exist," he said. Quietly, "but it's there. Glowing like it's alive." Raiden looked at the image. Lyra's blood under the magnifier wasn't red or blue. It was gold, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. But that wasn't the strange part. Inside the cells were patterns, not random ones, designed ones. Tiny circuits, like microwires. Like technology inside her DNA. Raiden leaned closer. "You're saying her blood is part machine?" "No," Ilian said. "Not machine. Something older, something designed but biological. It's like her body was made to interface with tech, old tech, ancient tech." Raiden straightened, thinking fast. He remembered old stories from Black Archives files not meant for public eyes. Stories about alien machines hidden across the galaxy, locked behind living keys. You think she's one of those keys? He asked. She's not just a key, the doctor said slowly. She's part of the lock. In her cell, Lyra sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed. But her mind was awake, memories flashing behind her lids, her mother warning her as a child, never let them scan your blood, never speak the human tongue. But it was too late now. They knew. She opened her eyes and saw Captain Raiden standing at the glass, watching her again. He didn't speak for a moment. Then finally, "What are you?" he asked bluntly. Lyra stood, calmly walking toward the barrier. "I don't know," she answered. "But I know what they called me." Raiden waited. "They called me the Seed," she said quietly. "The Dravari elders whispered that name when they thought I couldn't hear." Raiden frowned. "Seed of what?" "Of the first flame," she replied. He looked confused, so she explained. "There are stories forgotten by your people, forbidden by mine, of a time before the war, when humans and ancient travelers worked together, building machines that could think and feel, machines that needed someone to wake them." Raiden listened carefully. "Not just anyone," she continued. "Only someone who carried both the blood of creators and warriors." "My blood," silence stretched between them. Raiden was no longer looking at her like a prisoner. He was looking at her like a mystery that could change everything. Lyra stepped closer, eyes meeting his. "Your war isn't just with the Dravari," she said. "Something else is coming, something that feeds on old machines. The Dravari tried to stop it, but they failed." Raiden narrowed his eyes. "And you think you can stop it?" Lyra smiled sadly. "No," she whispered. "But we can." Hours later, inside the command room, Raiden gathered his officers. The image of Lyra's glowing blood hovered in the air above the table. "She's telling the truth," Raiden said. "Or at least part of it." "Captain," one of the lieutenants said nervously, "if command finds out you've been talking to her, they'll court-martial you." Raiden didn't blink. "If she's right, we won't live long enough for court-martials." Down in the lower decks, the ship's AI system flickered. Without warning, screens glowed gold for a second. Symbols like Lyra's arm markings appeared and vanished then. The system spoke, in a voice that sounded both male and female. "Key detected. Connection forming." Back in her cell, Lyra jolted upright. Her mark was glowing again, hot this time, like fire under her skin. She clutched her arm, gasping. "Captain," she whispered. "They found me." Raiden got the alert seconds later, energy spikes near the prisoner's cell. But not from her, from the ship itself. Systems were responding to her presence without orders, as if the ship recognized her. Raiden ran toward the brig. This was no longer about orders or war. This was about survival, and the girl behind the glass might be the galaxy's last hope. Asterisk red lights flashed through the halls of the Helios. An alarm blared 3 times, then stopped. A cold voice followed. "Warning, containment breach. Prisoner missing." Captain Raiden sprinted toward the brig, guards following behind him. His mind raced. How could she escape? There were no tunnels, no hacked locks, no signs of struggle. But when he reached the cell, the door was open, the lights flickering, and Lyra was gone. "Where is she?" Raiden shouted, turning to the security officer. "I want every hallway scanned, every vent, every door logged." The officer nodded and ran, panic in his eyes. Raiden stared at the empty cell, his jaw tight. She couldn't have done this alone. Not this clean, not this quiet. Someone had helped her, someone on his ship, in a dark storage bay on Deck 6. Lyra crouched behind metal crates. She held her side, blood dripping through her fingers. Not her blood, someone else's. She had defended herself when they came for her. 3 masked men-human crew, but not acting on Raiden's orders. They called her a virus, said the captain was too blind to stop the infection. They were going to kill her quietly, blame it on a heart failure. Clean and simple. But she fought back. Her training returned in one sharp breath. And when it was over, 2 were dead. 1 escaped. She knew now there was a traitor among the humans, someone afraid of her blood, afraid of what she might unlock. She needed to find Raiden, but she didn't know if he'd still trust her. Meanwhile, Raiden stormed into the control deck. "Check access logs again," he barked. Someone disabled the cameras outside the brig for 2 minutes, just long enough. Lieutenant Mara frowned at the screen. "Sir, we found strange code running through the door system," she said. "It doesn't look human, or—" "Dravari," Raiden paused, then whispered. "It's her." Lyra crawled through a maintenance shaft now. Her breath shallow, she heard footsteps below search teams. She had no weapon, no food. Just one mission reached the AI core before they found her. Because she felt it now, something inside her pulling her there. The ship wanted her to come. And she was starting to understand why. On the bridge, alerts spiked again. "Unusual energy detected near core room," the AI announced. "Unknown signals forming." Raiden turned. "No one goes near the core, only me." Lyra dropped from the shaft and landed inside the core room. Blue light glowed around her. The air shimmered, and she felt warmth on her skin. The walls moved metal petals opening like a flower, and in the center floated a heart of gold and glass, the ship's true brain. It pulsed. Key recognized. The AI said softly, "Speak your name." Lyra stepped forward. "Lyra, daughter of fire and frost, born of Dravari and forgotten flame." The AI glowed brighter. "Link complete." Then it stopped. Raiden stood in the doorway, gun in hand, eyes locked on her. "Don't move," he said, but he didn't shoot. "Not yet." Lyra raised her hand slowly. "I didn't run," she said. "I was almost killed by your own crew." Raiden didn't lower the weapon. "Who?" he asked. "I don't know," she replied. "But someone is afraid of what I am. They think I'm a threat." Raiden paused, then slowly lowered the weapon. "Maybe you are," he said, "but so is whatever scared them enough to act." First, behind them, the AI pulsed again. "Command override ready. 2 voices required." Raiden blinked. "2?" Lyra nodded. "Dravari and human, 2 bloods. 1 purpose." Raiden looked at her for a long moment, then stepped forward. Together, they spoke. "Activate core." The ship shuddered, energy surging through every floor. Lights flickered, systems rebooted. And far away, in deep space, something heard the signal, something old and angry back on the Helios. The traitor who had escaped watched from a dark corner, his hand clenched around a communicator. "She activated it," he whispered. "The key is awake," a voice on the other side replied coldly. "Then the hunt begins." The lights across the Helios shimmered gold for the 3rd time in an hour. Crew members whispered to each other. Was the ship haunted, hacked, or worse, alive? Captain Raiden stood in his private quarters, watching the stars beyond the glass. Behind him, Lyra sat silently at his table, her hands folded. She hadn't spoken for several minutes, not since her final words in the core room. "If you want the ship to obey, we must bond." Raiden turned, finally breaking the silence. "Bond? What does that even mean?" Lyra looked up slowly. "It's not a marriage, not love. Not what humans think it is," she said. "It's a connection. Old, sacred, built into the ship's systems. 1 key isn't enough." She stood and walked to him, but stopped a few steps away. "1 blood opens the door," she said softly. 2 bloods command the fire behind it." Raiden narrowed his eyes. "Why me?" Lyra tilted her head. "Because the ship chose you too." Elsewhere on the ship, the traitor who had escaped from the failed ambush typed a message from a hidden console. "They're activating the core system. Bonding ritual. Expected. Permission to sabotage?" A reply came instantly. "Denied. Let the humans bond. When the system is fully unlocked, we strike." The spy swallowed hard. They were being used as bait, and he knew it. But orders were orders. Raiden paced in the room. "I'm not doing some alien blood ritual because a talking ship asked me." "2," he said sharply. "We don't even know what happens afterward." Lyra leaned on the wall, arms crossed. Then you'll lose control of the system in less than 48 hours, she said coldly. The ship has tasted both our bloods. It now expects us to finish the process. Raiden stopped walking. You said this bond isn't love, he said. But what is it? Lyra looked down at her hand, flexing her fingers. It's memory, she said. It lets us share thoughts, feelings, instincts. You'll feel what I feel. Sometimes before I feel it, Raiden blinked. Sounds dangerous. It is, she whispered. But it's also the only way to fight what's coming. In the strategy room, Raiden called a private meeting with his inner circle, only 3. Officers were allowed, each handpicked for loyalty. This ship's systems are responding to Lyra, he began. And now they're reacting to me too. Lieutenant Mara frowned. Sir, with all due respect, you're considering bonding with a Dravari prisoner? Raiden nodded slowly. She's not just Dravari, he said. Her DNA is something else. And the ship wants it. One of the officers stepped forward. Sir, even if you trust her, how do we know this isn't some kind of trap? Raiden looked at them all, his voice calm but strong. Because if it is, we're already dead. Later, in a hidden chamber behind the engine core, Lyra waited. The air smelled of dust and fire. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the walls. This was where the Ancient Ones had once stood, where blood and mind merged with machine. Raiden arrived, wearing a sleeveless vest and utility belt. He looked unsure, maybe even nervous, but determined. What now? He asked. Lyra stepped forward. We place our hands on the pillar, she said, pointing to a tall structure pulsing with energy. Then we speak our names. And let the ship listen. Raiden nodded. They placed their palms on the glowing surface. Heat surged up their arms instantly. Pain. Then something else. A rush of memories, voices from the past. Lyra's face as a child, crying in a frozen room. Raiden's first kill on a moon battlefield. His hands shaking, their breaths matched, their minds spinning. But then the pain faded. The pillar pulsed once. Then the floor lit up. The chamber opened, revealing a staircase of light leading into the mainframe. Bond confirmed. The AI whispered. Core unlocked. Full access granted to Commander Raiden and Guardian Lyra. The lights across the Helios shimmered gold for the 3rd time in an hour. Crew members whispered to each other. Was the ship haunted? Hacked? Or worse, alive? Captain Raiden stood in his private quarters, watching the stars beyond the glass. Behind him, Lyra sat silently at his table, her hands folded. She hadn't spoken for several minutes, not since her final words in the core room. If you want the ship to obey, we must bond. Raiden turned, finally breaking the silence. Bond? What does that even mean? Lyra looked up slowly. It's not a marriage, not love. Not what humans think it is, she said. It's a connection. Old, sacred, built into the ship's systems. One key isn't enough. She stood and walked to him, but stopped a few steps away. One blood opens the door, she said softly. 2 bloods command the fire behind it. Raiden narrowed his eyes. Why me? Lyra tilted her head. Because the ship chose you too. Elsewhere on the ship, the traitor who had escaped from the failed ambush typed a message from a hidden console. They're activating the core system. Bonding ritual. Expected. Permission to sabotage? A reply came instantly. Denied. Let the humans bond. When the system is fully unlocked, we strike. The spy swallowed hard. They were being used as bait, and he knew it. But orders were orders. Raiden paced in the room. I'm not doing some alien blood ritual because a talking ship asked me. 2, he said sharply. We don't even know what happens afterward. Lyra leaned on the wall, arms crossed. Then you'll lose control of the system in less than 48 hours, she said coldly. The ship has tasted both our bloods. It now expects us to finish the process. Raiden stopped walking. You said this bond isn't love, he said. But what is it? Lyra looked down at her hand, flexing her fingers. It's memory, she said. It lets us share thoughts, feelings, instincts. You'll feel what I feel. Sometimes before I feel it, Raiden blinked. Sounds dangerous. It is, she whispered. But it's also the only way to fight what's coming. In the strategy room, Raiden called a private meeting with his inner circle, only 3. Officers were allowed, each handpicked for loyalty. This ship's systems are responding to Lyra, he began. And now they're reacting to me too. Lieutenant Mara frowned. Sir, with all due respect, you're considering bonding with a Dravari prisoner? Raiden nodded slowly. She's not just Dravari, he said. Her DNA is something else. And the ship wants it. One of the officers stepped forward. Sir, even if you trust her, how do we know this isn't some kind of trap? Raiden looked at them all, his voice calm but strong. Because if it is, we're already dead, later. In a hidden chamber behind the engine core, Lyra waited. The air smelled of dust and fire. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the walls. This was where the Ancient Ones had once stood, where blood and mind merged with machine. Raiden arrived, wearing a sleeveless vest and utility belt. He looked unsure, maybe even nervous, but determined. What now? He asked. Lyra stepped forward. We place our hands on the pillar, she said, pointing to a tall structure pulsing with energy. Then we speak our names. And let the ship listen. Raiden nodded. They placed their palms on the glowing surface. Heat surged up their arms instantly. Pain. Then something else. A rush of memories, voices from the past. Lyra's face as a child, crying in a frozen room. Raiden's first kill on a moon battlefield. His hands shaking, their breaths matched, their minds spinning. But then the pain faded. The pillar pulsed once. Then the floor lit up. The chamber opened, revealing a staircase of light leading into the mainframe. Bond confirmed. The AI whispered. Core unlocked. Full access granted to Commander Raiden and Guardian Lyra. The space around the Helios turned black, not from darkness, but from the shadow of something massive. The World Eater had arrived. A living ship, miles wide. Its skin made of broken metal and twisted bones. Thousands of red eyes blinked across its surface, each one searching. Hungering, on the bridge, silence. No one spoke, not even the AI. Only the sound of Lyra's breath filled the room as she stepped forward. Eyes glowing, Raiden looked at her. You said this ship was powerful, but that thing... Lyra nodded. I know, she said. It's older than both our people. A machine that devours living systems and adds them to itself. Raiden turned to the crew. All weapons online. Defense shields max. The officers scrambled, systems lighting up. But nothing felt strong enough. Lyra walked to the heart of the bridge, where the interface now responded only to her and Raiden. She placed her hand on it. Golden light bloomed from her fingers. I'm going outside, she said suddenly. Raiden stepped forward, alarmed. What? No, you'll be killed, she turned, eyes calm. I have to interface directly with the external control array. The link is not complete from inside. Raiden frowned. You're guessing. She shook her head. I'm feeling. He hesitated, then whispered. You don't have to do this alone. Lyra looked at him, and something gentle moved in her expression. I don't want to, she whispered. But this part, only I can do. She stepped closer, gently touched his face. Her hand was cold, but her eyes were full of fire. Do you remember the first words I spoke to you? She asked. Raiden smiled a little. How could I forget? Don't kill. Human. She whispered. I'll warm your bed. They both laughed quietly, but the warmth faded fast. Time was running out. Lyra stood on top of the Helios, wearing a thin protective field around her. The stars blinked and the World Eater opened its massive jaws. Energy surged in every direction. It was preparing to feed. She closed her eyes, reached into herself, and called to the ship not with words, but with feeling. The bond between her and Raiden glowed in her chest like a burning thread, a connection forged not by war, but by trust. The ship responded. Metal panels shifted beneath her feet, forming a platform. Ancient weapons rose from hidden chambers, activated only by her signal. On the bridge, Raiden watched through the viewport. The sight of Lyra standing alone on the hull made something ache deep inside him. He wanted to scream, pull her back, stop her, but he knew she was not dying out there. She was fighting, as only she could. The World Eater fired. A massive beam of red light tore through space, aimed directly at the Helios. Lyra raised her hands, and the ship responded. A shield of golden fire burst around the vessel. The beam hit. The ship trembled, but it held. Then Lyra shouted, not in fear, but in command, now! The weapons launched blades of light, storm beams, sonic drills. They struck the World Eater like lightning. Pieces of its armor cracked, exploded. The monster screamed, a sound that made every living creature flinch, but it wasn't enough. The core of the beast remained, still alive, still moving toward them. Raiden saw it and made a decision. He ran to the emergency escape pod, climbed into the secondary weapon control, one that required a second signal. He activated the final blast, a beam made only for one purpose: destruction of planetary threats. Lyra heard the signal through their bond. Raiden was helping, risking his life. She smiled, not because she wanted him to suffer, but because, for the first time in her life, someone had chosen to fight beside her, not against her. She whispered something only he could hear. You're the warmth I never knew I needed. Then she screamed, fired the core weapon with all her energy. The light from the Helios cut the World Eater in half. The creature shattered, screaming into silence. Then, silence, deep, peaceful silence. Later, in the medbay, Raiden woke up. Lyra was beside him, her hand in his, eyes soft. You didn't leave, he said weakly. I said I'd warm your bed, she whispered with a small smile. Not leave it cold. They both laughed gently. But around them, the crew cheered. The galaxy shifted, and two enemies were now something new, not human, not alien, but bonded by blood, by battle, and by something far stronger than war: hope.